Great. So, assuming we are live, welcome everyone to another episode of the OpenJS Foundation's Cross-Project Council meeting. Let me just see something real quickly. Chat is enabled, so I will say hi, friends, in the chat, and add the link to the notes here. I think we shared the notes already, but I will add it again in the chat. Today's the 11th of July, 2023, and we'll get this cross-project council meeting started. How about announcements? Start there. Anything? No? Okay, cool. We'll just keep on trucking. We'll jump into the agenda if there's nothing on like the board or anything like that. Cool.
Next board meeting is Friday, the 21st of July. So think about it always the third Friday of the month, unless there's like a conference where we meet face to face.
So third Friday. Cool. Great. So I'm going to jump into it. The first thing, and I move this to the top because it's a good place to start, is to welcome new members. Ethan is here. Welcome, Ethan. Thank you for joining and being involved. Greatly appreciate all the work that you're doing. Additionally, we have Roy, who recently joined, and Roy Adorno and Rick Markins as well. And so we're happy to have them all officially as members. You know, I think everybody's been kind of involved in, you know, to some extent. So I'm glad that they are on the list and can join in the private discussions and the decisions that we sometimes need to consider. So welcome, everybody. Thanks again. Bye, Rich. Cool. And I think, you know, Ben and I talked about trying to maybe automate some of the new member stuff too. But I'll have to maybe make an issue for that later, just to make sure that when new folks join, things don't get merged until we kind of have them all in the right groups and email lists and stuff. So we'll work on that. Great. So welcome, everybody. Next item on the agenda is add guidelines for board updates. Toby created this a couple of weeks ago. Claudio, you had some comments. I don't know if anybody's got anything to share on this or if they've spent any time looking at this. And it looks like Toby asks for you to suggest a change because he's not sure what you were saying, Claudio. But generally it's just some guidance on sharing board information in CPC meetings. So if nobody has any comments in this meeting, I just suggest people take a look. Oh, I see Jordan is looking to join. Jordan here. Yeah, take a look at your earliest convenience. I don't think this is controversial, but I think guidance is always helpful. So take a look. Welcome, Jordan. I will share the meeting minutes again real quickly here so Jordan has them. Cool. So continuing on, the third item on the agenda is standardize on collab spaces over working groups. And Toby really helpfully kind of laid this out in a comment here. So I kind of forgot that we actually took over Node.js's guidance on like working groups and strategic initiatives and things like that. So I forgot that we even had like a working groups doc. I thought we were just sort of running like, you know, like you would expect, you know, people spin up working groups and stuff. So when we started the collab space stuff that Michael helped build out, you know, I was thinking that we were moving to that rather than working groups, which I think we in general kind of have, but we still have both of them in our repo and our documentation. I think that collaboration spaces make more sense for us as I understand them, which is meant to be more of like an open space for people to join in from the community and whatnot, as opposed to like more official kind of working groups that are chartered and all that stuff. Having both of them is a bit confusing. In fact, I forgot that we even had documentation on working groups. So I was suggesting that we get rid of working groups, standardize on collab spaces, and kind of move forward from there. Yeah, and Michael, you agree? Sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, so I definitely think if we're going to have both, we would need much clearer documentation, because it's, I wouldn't have been able to verbalize the difference until I saw Toby's comment. However, I think particularly for standards, there is an important difference between working group and collab space, and it seems appropriate for and for code of conduct for those two things to be more like working groups, because they have delegated authority, whereas the collab spaces are more about, let's have a sort of organized place to discuss and whatnot, but the CPC still makes decisions, right? And so that's not to say the CPC loses the authority to make those decisions. It's more just that they don't need to be involved in those decisions. So I don't know if maybe we don't need the distinction, but in particular, those two areas seem like they need delegated authority, where most of the others don't, and thus make sense to me as collab spaces.
I don't know. I think it's fuzzy, Jordan,
right?
Because I feel like our security collab space, prioritizes and helps us make decisions. So I don't see the difference. I mean, we're already super complicated in a lot of projects. Any way we could simplify, because, when you're doing your little elevator pitch, it's complicated,
That's fair. Yeah, if there's not going to be any effective difference, then I don't have any attachment to either term.
Yeah.
Right. It's just Toby's comment really made me realize that that intuitively I feel a difference between the two. That doesn't mean that my intuition is important here, right? It's as long as we document clearly what it means to be a collab space. If that's all we have, that's fine. I just wanted to bring that out, that I think that there is a distinct difference between standards, COC, and maybe security versus most of the other efforts that are going on.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate you, because I haven't had a chance to read Toby's comment, so I appreciate you making clear that sort of authority distinction there, and that does make sense. But I wonder if we could build that into a collab space, something along the lines of making sure CPC is aware of any sort of representative actions or something. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think you're talking code of conduct. I think that's a distinctive group. It's, that's elected by the CPC and staff. It's not for us, of course, the standards working group is open to anybody who wants to come and participate. So
yeah, and to be clear, I think we have a code of conduct moderation team that we're trying to figure out versus a code of conduct working group that we spun up early on to try and figure out some of
those. Oh, right. It was, which then morphed into our working sessions. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's another thing we should clean up and figure out and retire or whatever needs to happen there too. So okay.
The standards working group, OpenJS sends delegates to ECMA, for example, to TC39. And so the OpenJS Foundation is represented by those decisions. And the CPC, while it can be involved in those decisions, isn't typically. And so that to me feels substantially different from this, an open arena where everyone just gets to discuss stuff. Yeah. Maybe code of conduct is a special enough case that it was derailing to bring that up, but they're just, I don't know. I think it's fine if it all fits into collab space. It's just I think it's important that a standards working group has the ability to, or a standards group has the ability to make decisions and represent the foundation without going back to the CPC every time. Obviously in good faith, such that if they brought it to the CPC would be cool with it, and so on. But anyway,
yeah, and maybe it's just representative voices need to be ratified by the CPC, and then if there are representative voices, then they need to just share updates however deem fit.
But, and likewise, though, the security collab space will help us prioritize how we spend money as well. And I would hate to, like have a second conversation outside, the security and then going back to the CPC. So,
Right.
Yeah.
so yeah, document the authority that we have. Yeah.
Exactly. As long as that's allowed for, the name is unimportant to me. Let's just make sure it's clean and like clear.
Yeah. No, these are good points.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I think generally speaking, this needs to be worked on more. I don't know if we'll, need to make much progress in this meeting, but Toby's comments good here, and we can launch off from there and figure out what how we want to move forward. All right, cool. So we'll leave it at that. I do encourage folks though to maybe take a look at this and to think about it. Maybe we need a working session to kind of just dig into it and hash out some of the ideas and concepts, and then somebody can help document it. All right, cool. I'm going to move on to the next item, which is, and if anybody can help take notes, that would be fantastic. The next item is nonviolent communication and strategic workplace conflict resolution training. Benjamin, is it Grunbaum? I forget. Their last name brought this up. There's been some comments here. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to share. Oh, wow. Even Tracy Hines chimed in here. I haven't seen her in a long time. Yeah, anybody want to share some context on this if they've commented or been in this conversation at all?
Just in general, I think none of us could be hurt by further improvements to communication, even those of us that need it less than others, and those of us that need it more than others, right? Like it seems like a pretty obvious thing we should try to do periodically.
And
I don't think there's anything. Oh, go ahead.
I think we've discussed having our code of conduct committee make that a requirement to go through training as well. So as I mentioned, the LF is offering it. I'm doing the psychological safety session on Thursday, so I'll get to know the vendor a little bit, and then we have follow-ups. So
cool.
Yeah. So it's offered to the whole staff. And again, if we did something, we can offer it to all of the community who's interested in participating would be my vision for us. So
I think that's a great vision. I think making this something available for folks like through the foundation, it's like it can help them not just with how they interact with the foundation or with the open source projects in the foundation, but it's definitely like transferable across a whole career and everything. So being the folks or the means to provide that for everyone or anyone would be pretty cool. So yeah, big plus one for making that available.
Cool. And so you, Robin, may have more information at our next meeting in like 2 weeks.
I will. Yeah.
All right, great. So we'll leave that for them. Excellent. And thanks to whoever's jumped in and taking some notes here. Appreciate it. Next item is, do charters which use the template need to include MIT? So I'm looking at this now. Ben opened this up 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I don't know if anybody has dug into this. Toby has a response. Toby suggests reaching out to council and suggests we close this. I don't know. This may be something that Robin, you or Ben should take a look at and just
we can pop it over to Gesmer after.
Okay. And then I don't know if we should close this now or if you want to take a look at it and then close it once you feel like you kind of.
Let's just leave it open until we get the help
Okay, sounds good.
we need.
Great. All right, provide an SLA and a ticket system for infrastructure maintained by the foundations, issue 1099. Mateo asked about this 3 weeks ago. Ben, you commented on this. You're on
You made it.
Sorry about that. I am imagining that this is or should be part of the infrastructure work stream as part of the Sovereign Tech Fund. So I flagged the two folks who are working on this, and I see this as being part of their next milestone that's happening this quarter. The next milestone for this quarter is essentially creating an SOW, and I would expect that this should be part of that. So I also flagged this for a discussion I'm having with them today, to make sure that they realize that this should absolutely be in scope. I don't know if providing an SLA and a ticket system is going to be what's in scope, but at least there should be some discussion about what they should offer, what this could look like as part of that SOW.
Okay.
We did have an early discussion with them, with the LFIT leadership, and they said sometimes if they have SLAs, there are a certain time, but they 99% of the time solve it within a fraction of the time that they have in any sort of SLA. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So, Ben, if you wouldn't mind just throwing in some sort of comment after you have the conversation, that would be great. And we'll leave that one for now. So next up is document process for requesting organization billing, code spaces, runners, etc. Claudio, you open this. Do you want to? I see Ben. There's been some comments here.
Yep. Okay, so I thought that this was a working session, to be honest. So I was just thinking in working with Ben on this, but since it's not a working session, or not, the plan pretty much is just try to start drafting while in the working session. A little draft for this markdown document. And together with other CPC members, drafting the PR on the go. But for context, for the ones that are not aware of what this is, it's just having a well-defined process, of if project member needs to request infrastructure, for something GitHub or something different, and keep it documented which ones have already requested and what they have access to, so that we just remember, and that is also public, and other reasons. But there's no discussion topic right now. It just actually do the work.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just add in the kind of the two pieces here. Like there's going to be a CPC process, right, of vetting a request for funds, and then an LF process for ensuring that we've got the budget for it for an entire year, and then actually doing the work of like getting a virtual credit card and like adding all that stuff into GitHub. So that's why both myself and Claudia are working on that for those two pieces.
yeah. And then
Exactly what Ben said.
Cool. And then just to add, I mean, like I said, a couple of the core reasons we exist is to support infrastructure, legal, things like that. So we're always going to try to make it work. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. And additionally, I kind of like the idea of working sessions instead of a working session. Like if we want to kind of identify a couple of things that people want to pair off on, or peel off to smaller groups to work on things during that working session time slot, I think that's a great idea. And we can adjust the meeting schedule issue accordingly to share a couple of different Zooms if you want to work on this thing, if you want to work on that thing, join these groups. So we can keep that in mind as we figure out what we want to use working session time for. Cool. Next up on the list is enable payments for paid actions, large runners, macOS runners for Webpack, etc. This has been around. I think you know,
Yeah, I talked to Sean about this and he's cool, holding tight until the infrastructure work kind of happens through Sovereign Tech Fund. So.
okay.
Mhm.
Do you want to add any sort of comment that just kind of touches on that? So when we come back to this, we know,
Yeah,
so, you know, just in a holding pattern, or something.
yep.
Cool. Or I don't know if we have a label for that sort of thing or what we want to do, but, comments are always good.
I sort of wonder if we want to add labels that will sort of flip it over to the Sovereign Tech Fund work streams and cover it there.
Yeah, sure. So,
A pass the buck one.
yeah, and the, meeting infrastructure tooling that we have in place looks across the org for labels. So if we put a, you know, a security collab space agenda label on this, it'll get picked up in our security collab space agenda. So, and it can be on both agendas if we want, whatever, however we want to deal with it is, I think should work. Cool. I will move on to the next one, which is enable ability to have pseudonymity. I'm not sure if that's a word for easy CLA. Sean brought this up a while ago. I know we've talked about it a little bit. This, I don't know if there's been any discussion on this, if that's even something that, you know, I know there's a lot of work done on easy CLA. I don't know what we can.
Yeah, it's, I had some interaction and exchanges with our attorney, Andy Updegrove, on that. It's just not it's not an easy answer. So likely a topic of our next member council meeting, which are essentially the attorneys for our board members who come and discuss legal issues. So.
Is there a way to put that in a brief comment?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Robin.
Mhm.
Great. We're on to requirements for projects ingesting other existing external projects. Again, I know this has been discussed, and actually it's been discussed a bunch.
Mhm.
I
think
don't know.
that's on me to find best practices. I've just been
Yeah, okay.
behind. Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. Great. If you can add a comment, that would be great, Robin. You've got a long list of comments, I know.
I do.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. JSON schema initial charter. This is back. Let's see here. Yeah, two weeks ago. The associated JSON schema charter PR is now ready for re-review. So folks, take a look at that, and we can help them to move along. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the last things that they needed for graduation. They opened this ticket in April, had some things to go back and figure out, but it looks like they may be good now. But hang on, I'm just kind of curious. So they are, this is the JSON schema charter PR. Okay. Interesting. All right, so yeah, I encourage folks to take a look through this. There's a good amount here, and I don't know if we are just approving charters, because there's a governance doc here as well. I mean, I guess if people want to comment, I think the process is really only for us to approve the charter. But anyway, I encourage folks to take a look and see if they have any concerns or thoughts, and we can kind of try to move that forward with them. The next three issues are CPC board representation, open up community board seat. Should we have a co-chair? I know they're all kind of tied together. We're going to be brought to the board. I don't know if there's been any updates on any of that or where we're at there. And I don't know if anyone, I guess Robin, you would maybe be the one to know. There was all that stuff that Toby put together around simplifying the CPC board representation, I think tying it to amount of projects, but being mindful
Yeah,
of.
and that's still under discussion. I think the CPC chair, I thought we had consensus that that was like a thumbs up and didn't require, I don't know if it would require board approval.
Yeah,
I guess
no,
the bylaws change, maybe, I don't know.
yeah, I feel like it would be good to unbundle that. I feel like it is bundled currently, but it would be good to unbundle that.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe that's something Toby or I can work on, or someone can work on. Okay. So that's still being discussed. Co-chair issue, if anybody wants to take a look in there, but I think everybody's kind of agreed that there's nothing wrong with that. And then we get into some of the COC stuff. There is the update contributor covenants to 2.1, and then another issue further down, clarify requirements around COC violation. My impression of the status of this work is that we're going to abandon the tooling that we were building out to like patch code of conduct upstream stuff, and just kind of go the old school way. And Toby and I had agreed to kind of work on that once we both sort of freed up some time. My June was very busy, but now I have a little bit more bandwidth, so we are going to work on that hopefully soon. I'll check with Toby so we can work on that. I see someone added a comment for that, a license check, but it's these two, this one and then this one. So license check support and tooling, I don't know if we
Yeah, maybe that should probably go perhaps to our sovereign tech fund as well, because one, we have Matt who helped build the tool at IBM in our security working group. And then we have the LFIT who can, work in automating that through our projects. So.
All right, so I will just say this issue should be moved to security collab space.
Mhm.
Is that easy to do?
To add a tag.
Yeah, if you're an admin on both repos and they're in the same org, you should be able to just bounce the issue.
Okay, cool. I will look at that when I'm done.
Cool. You can ping me later if you have trouble.
Cool, thank you, appreciate it. And then nearing the end here, second to last one is balancing privacy versus transparency for the travel fund. I feel like we made some decisions on this and just needed to move forward on them.
Yeah, I thought, as I recall, the decision was to make all the requests be private until after the event. And that if somebody wanted it to remain private after the event, like after the travel was concluded, in other words, and if someone wanted to remain private after that, to indicate somewhere that they could request it, but that the default would be to make it public after. Is that seemed like where I thought we landed, but that can be revisited if needed.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. And you
And there were some folks I think who said maybe it doesn't have to be made public at all, and that's also reasonable. But we can iterate towards that if public after the event was a problem.
I think we should figure out what information provides value being public, and start there. But I don't know if this means that we need like the foundation to put together a different system, whether it's just a Google form and a spreadsheet or what. But I think that's kind of maybe our blocker on this. And folks are still obviously creating travel requests through the old system, the current system. Yeah, I'm not sure what we need to do to move this forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's no trouble to create a workflow outside of GitHub if we need to. I think what I would need to know in order to implement that is like where does that go, right? Because currently right now, a person submits an issue, there's like a lot of visibility, the CPC can see it, right? And
Can
if
I
it's
suggest
approved,
an alternative?
you can.
You can do private vulnerability reports and private security pull requests. Perhaps we can just use that facility, and then the vulnerability is resolved when the travel is done, and that's when it goes public. And
It's
then
worth looking
on the
at.
same repo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't tried it, but it seems viable.
That actually is that
yeah.
would actually make sense. It's a feature that was meant for something else, but would actually fit
Sure.
for what we need. Yeah. It's public beta right now, right?
Yeah, and I don't think we'd ever be compelled to make them public too. So if we decided later, let's just leave them all private, I think we'd just keep doing it and leave them as like unresolved security things forever. And then the admins on the repo can see it and no one else.
Okay, but think about underrepresented community, early career. We just have to really document it so they can understand
Sure.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd have to do that regardless, right? This is just a way, if we value keeping it on GitHub, that might be a way to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a Google form would be really super simple and wouldn't.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Be less than, yeah.
Yeah, and then I can imagine, yeah, after each event, then something is made public and added to the GitHub repo accordingly.
As long as the Google form ends up somewhere that we can see.
Right.
I'm not today, like most of the things that are behind Google Forms, I don't know if I ever see anything that comes from those unless I happen to I saw one that like the spreadsheet was pasted against an issue. It's like, okay, but otherwise it's like not nearly as transparent, even to like the people who are on the CPC.
Yeah, I guess the question is what should be transparent to who? Would we want all the CPC members to be able to have access to every request? I mean, I guess if we're all approving it, then yes. But then that gets back to the whole, privacy issue again. I don't know.
That's fair.
Okay, I don't know if we really have clarity on what's the best way forward here.
Well, it seems like everyone seems okay with the idea of private till the event, public after by default, a path to not making it public by default, and then if that's not sufficient, we can just explore private period later. And then the only question is, what is the mechanism for privately requesting that avoids the pitfalls?
And is private mean, but still everyone on the CPC, all CPC members have access to it?
I would say it's probably similar to we'd probably want to do it similar to the way COC stuff does it, which is like the common path is to the group. But if you have a need to do it privately, here is a trusted person or a trusted people. You can select who you want to. So like if somebody wanted to ask Robin directly and not tell everyone on the CPC, there's a path for that. It's just that's not the default one.
Yeah.
Like, and that way there's like an escape hatch for someone who's really concerned, but we don't have to be that paranoid about it until that point.
Yeah.
Mhm. What I think it'd be nice is to have some sort of a quarterly process for y'all to get a true up of where we are from a budget perspective, because you all control this budget. It hasn't been a problem but we've had, we had essentially COVID, now economic downturn, but it's starting to pick up. So I know our program committee, we set aside separate budget for events for travel as well for folks who need it. And sometimes our program committee will look holistically at some of the asks and try to balance that out. So.
Yeah, another idea too is that we just have an email alias for travel requests and they would just go to the private CPC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me noodle, because I mean, a very simple way to do this is like we have a Google form. It goes into a spreadsheet that the CPC can all view. You can subscribe to a spreadsheet when when there's a change, right? So you get an email notification, and then you could. This is going to sound weird, but like you could reference the row number in a public GitHub issue to have the discussion about whether or not it's approved. So you could say row 35 is approved, right? So that could be the mechanism for approving, and you still have that record in GitHub.
I somehow I fancied the idea of actually leveraging the security vulnerability issue, because it is for our records an issue that is just created privately, and then
Yeah.
at any point it can just make it public, right? Or I know that we usually use pull requests, but one thing that also kind of bugs me is that the request itself is also pull request, which makes changes to the table of recorded, but most of those things that we need in a table are always TBD because we don't have the data at the moment of the pull request. So I also kind of find it weird. I think, my honest opinion, those would be issues. And after you got reimbursed, you make a pull request. Just, this is and you add, your post event report, because we actually kind of have a mentioning that, it's good to add a post event report because it kind of helps to justify the budget. How was it? What did you learn? And that kind of thing. But most of the times, if not all, that I've seen so far, after it gets merged, people just never update the table again. So I think it makes sense to have it in issue format, and then actually have, a PR afterwards when it finishes. I don't know, because issues are also visible, right? Enough. And if we add the right label, if we had a label system, for example, waiting for approval, right? And then label approved. Only the CPC can add those labels anyways, right? So, and you can know who added those labels also. And how people vote, well, +1. For example, in the Node.js TSC, we don't have PRs usually for voting stuff. It's issues so far as usually what I see. And people put +1 or LGTPM or etc. Sorry, just putting random thoughts here. But maybe we can leverage the best of both worlds, in terms of GitHub features. We can both switch to an issue first format and then a PR when needed, for post event reports. And then, we can also leverage that because it's a new feature, it's a better feature of private security vulnerability thing. But like Robin mentioned, we will pretty much need to document very well that this security vulnerability or security report, we actually use it for our travel fund, because I can see some people be like, okay, well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, there are still some things to be figured out here. Yeah, Ben, if you don't mind putting some thought into it and seeing what you think might work well, and we can kind of, and maybe we need to look into this vulnerability private issues.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, Google Forms is a well-known entity. I just want to play somewhere safe with doing a security advisory and see a private vulnerability reporting rather, and see how that works. And yeah, maybe I'll come back next time around with a rec if that's okay.
Okay. All right, cool. Sounds good. Moving on. The last item here is I'm assuming, did someone add this?
Yeah, I added it in because I tagged it with the agenda, but I don't know if the tool, I can't remember if it doesn't go cross organizations, but it didn't show up.
Yeah.
But I added because it's in the TSC repo. It's been open for a number of weeks. The question is related to the remaining funds from the OSSF. And, so that some of the TSC members have gotten together to figure out how we might spend that. There's a proposal. So the question is in the issue is around okay, how are we gonna, if we find a contractor to do some work, how would we pay them? How much support can we get from the foundation to do that versus having to figure it out ourselves? So the first question, I think the preferred way is if the foundation would handle the contracting for us.
Yeah.
And then if that's not possible, then hey, we did set up an FLX crowdfunding account. Maybe we can just transfer the money into there.
No, we can handle it. We do it for the other projects from OpenSSF. So whether you use one vendor or 2 or 3, we can manage that, because they will need to sign vendor agreements. And then they just go into our finance system with billing.
And a vendor could be we're talking
An individual person.
individual effort here. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you could just comment in the issue saying, yeah, there's no problem, we'll handle the contract for you, then that'll give, because there's been some discussion, a proposal. It was like, okay, before we go ahead, how would we pay somebody? Got to figure that out. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Pretty easy. And we have the template, little vendor agreement, and they send their little invoice with their hours, and they, go through the billings. Pretty
Okay.
efficient. Okay.
No, that's great news, because that's the simplest, I think, for us. And that
Great.
the next part would be like, how do we find somebody? But that we were waiting on that to get this answer. So thanks.
Cool. That does conclude our agenda. I'm looking at the last section here around the working session stuff. And I like the idea of multiple working sessions. So I don't know if Claudio and Ben, you were talking about working on the board update stuff. Is that right? Or
That
it
is
something-
correct.
Okay.
Sorry, not board updates. We are working on the funding, GitHub funding for projects.
That's what it was, GitHub funding.
Yes.
Okay, and then maybe we'll have another working session on code of conduct work. I have to reach out to Toby and see if he's available. Otherwise, there are plenty of things to work on here. So maybe we'll have a couple of working sessions next time. Should be great. Spread it around. Plenty to do.
Speaking of working sessions, we're going to do a deep dive on SBOMs on Monday for our security collab space. If that's of interest, please join us. It's on the calendar. You're muted, Joe.
Yeah, the Husky's making all of his crazy noises. We moved the security collab space meetings to Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. If folks are interested, we're meeting weekly too, which is great. So we got lots of work to do if anybody's interested. And the SBOM deep dive will be great if that's of interest to you at all. All right, cool. Well, that's a wrap then, I suppose. I appreciate everybody being here and helping do the work, and we'll see you real soon.
Ditto.
Cool.
Thanks.